Record. I think we're recording. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to say it again. This is April's virtual bariatric meetup, not April as in me personally, April as in the month. And we are focusing on reframing food. And as I said earlier, we have two amazing guests, Lora Grabow and Jamie, the sleeve dietitian. They are going to be joining us today to help us, well, reframe food. So first things first, you guys, we have a very special guest host today, Miss Stephanie, One Hungry Mother, the founder of Bariatric Book Club and the Bariatric Society, is joining us today. Hello, Steph. Will you say a quick word for everybody?
Yeah, hi. I'm so happy to be here today, both in the virtual meetup and at April's beautiful home with April and Natalie. Excited. I love the virtual meetups, so happy to join.
Awesome. Thank you, friend. We have Lora Grabow is another one of our special guests today. Hello, Lora. Will you take a quick minute and introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Lora Grabow, and I'm so happy to be here. Super pumped to be invited to your community and share with you what my passion is, which is the head work skills to bariatric surgery. I have worked with bariatric surgery patients for nearly 20 years now, providing that missing piece to your journey, things like reframing your relationship with food. And I'm excited to share about that today.
We are thrilled that you are joining us. Lora was actually connected to us by BariBox founder, Jana Wolf, who we recently interviewed for the podcast. If you guys haven't listened to that episode, highly recommend that you do. And I am so thankful for that connection because Lora is a phenomenal human. Her skill set is just unprecedented, and she is really going to be a phenomenal resource for everybody in this community. So Lora, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
Totally. Well, I don't see Jamie yet here, and that's okay. We will get her introduced when she does arrive. We're just gonna keep rolling, you guys. So first things first, if you don't know, I am a teacher and an educator, and I like to kind of do things in order, so I do apologize if this seems a little structured at first. It's absolutely not going to be like this. This is a chance for us to come together, to learn, to grow, to talk, to conversate. So don't be afraid to virtually raise your hand, to actually raise your hand, to unmute yourself, to just ask a question. We are here to learn from each other. So please know that that's how this is going to roll today. On our agenda, kind of two big things: understanding our relationship with food and then reframing food. So Laura's going to help us work through some head work, and Jamie is going to help us work through just kind of like how we can think about food in different ways that are beneficial to us before and after weight loss surgery. And then I always like to build in time for reflection, and we would like to gather some of your feedback today, so that will kind of wrap us up at the end. And just so you guys do know, I will take a hot minute between Lora and Jamie's kind of sections, just to give us a moment to reflect and really kind of process what we have learned today. So that'll kind of be the flow for that. So, okay. Next thing. Ooh, I keep hitting stuff. Okay. We always like to lay ground rules, so we're all on the same page. The mission of these virtual bariatric meetups is to support the bariatric community with humor, humility, and honesty. That is our goal at East to West, and it is our goal for these gatherings. We want to destigmatize bariatric surgery. We want to grow this community for and with bariatric patients. We want to share ideas, experiences that add to our lives before and after surgery. Okay? Very simple, all support. Our ground rules are very simple. We're going to assume best intent. We're going to share what you are comfortable with sharing publicly. We are not here to sell anything. We are going to share some amazing growth opportunities that both Lora and Jamie have for this community. But that's simply just sharing of a resource. If we see any nudity or violence or isms going on in the background, we're just going to remove you from the group. And as always, this is not medical advice. This is simply bariatric patients sharing and learning and growing together. Always consult your doctor, your surgeon, your nutritionist if you're going to make any changes to anything that is involved with your vessel or your surgery. Okay, thank goodness. Let's roll, you guys. Last things last, Gather, Juice Company, Retreat Drinks, and Grit City Chiropractic are sponsors of East to West. They help us keep the lights on. along with our patrons. And I just realized I have not updated this list because we have 31 people who support us every month, and we cannot do it without their support. So thank you to all of our patrons who are here today, and to all of our patrons that will be joining us in the future. You make it happen, truly. You're like paying for Zoom, so thank you. Okay, Laura, you ready?
I'm ready.
Woo! All right, well, again, take a moment and just kind of introduce yourself to us, maybe in a little bit of a deeper capacity. Kind of, how did you become the person that you are today? How do you serve the community, and why are you passionate about supporting the bariatric community?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I am a therapist. I'm here from Michigan today, and maybe not as nice as out there, but we do have sunshine, so I'm thankful for that. And, you know, when I got out of grad school, I never thought I would be working with the bariatric community. And it wasn't until, you know, I was a couple of years, I worked in adolescent psych for a couple of years. And then I had my own children and realized I just didn't want to do adolescent psych anymore. You guys can probably understand that. And I got invited to start doing some groups in a local program here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, doing surgical and medical weight loss. And I was like, I really don't know anything about it. But my colleague was like, but you know how to do groups. And I did. And I just fell in love with this community because, one, I went from working with teenagers who could care less about doing a group with me, who didn't want to talk, to adults who just wanted to be there and were just craving knowledge. And my passion for bariatric surgery is through the years. So I've worked now in bariatric surgery, head work, psychology, whatever you'd like to talk about, how you'd like to name it, for almost 18 years. And I'm realizing after 18 years, head work is still the missing piece. And April and I have had a conversation about that. Bariatric surgery is a wonderful tool to treat the disease of obesity, a wonderful tool to treat the disease of obesity, but it's not a cure. And here in Grand Rapids, the patients have access. I helped build a strong behavioral health program over the last almost 2 decades. And what I've learned is I've gotten to know people in my online community and speaking at patient conferences through the years for bariatric patients is that not everybody has that. And it's not only the tool for you of bariatric surgery answered the question, how am I going to get healthier? How am I going to treat my disease of obesity? What is the best tool out there? But it doesn't answer why you eat. And if you don't do that, the headwork piece, you're not going to have success. So that's why I'm here. And so I've gotten to be invited in hundreds, maybe thousands of patients' lives over the years, but also personally, my sister has had bariatric surgery and my cousin has had bariatric surgery and many friends. So that's a little bit of how I got involved in the community.
Well, we are thrilled that you are a member because we are very much looking forward to learning from you. And just based on the conversations that you and I've had, it's going to be life-changing, I think, in a lot of different ways. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, well, shall we dive in?
We should dive in.
Awesome. Do you want to start with a food quiz?
Let's start with the food quiz. So you have that, you're going to bring that up, right?
Yep, right here.
Perfect. Wonderful. Look at that. I don't even need my notes on it. April, I love that you are an educator and you are organized. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we are going to go through this and you can just kind of, if you have something to jot down or keep track in your mind, it's not that complicated. It is a Saturday, not going to make us work too hard. But I want us to start getting a understanding of what is our current relationship with food. And I think I want you to look at what has been your relationship with food pre-bariatric surgery, right? Because you are all learning to reframe that mindset. Now, if you're many, many years out, it may be hard to remember. But looking at, for the majority of your life, give yourself a point as we go through each one. And I want you to know, I often ask this question when I am meeting with bariatric surgery patients pre-bariatric surgery to do that assessment. I do that as well. So I want you to give yourself a point for every statement that is true for you. So let's just go. Food is friend, right? When I say what role does food play in your life? If it's friend, give yourself a point. Food is my comfort, right? I comfort with food. Food is how I celebrate. Food is celebration for me. This is one I've heard a lot about in the pandemic, is food has become my companion. I'm lonely. It's something to do at night. Food is my companion. Food is my boredom buster, right? It's hard for me to be bored. And so I turn to food, and I find myself maybe grazing when I'm bored, or going to see, what is there to eat? Because if once you're focusing on eating, you're not bored anymore. This is kind of a deeper one. This is me going all head work on you. Food is a place I can rebel. And again, I've learned the most from my patients. And what I've learned from my patients is you are everything to everyone. You are experts at people pleasing, and you're experts at putting yourself last, and you're go, 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 do. And guess what? There needs to be one area that you just let yourself go. And this is what I mean by this one. Has food become a place that you rebel? Ooh, here's one. Food accepts me just the way I am. I can count on it. It's always there for me. It's non-judgmental. Which brings us to the next one. Food never talks back. So food is a way that I found to avoid conflict. Food is my stress reliever. Another one I've heard a lot about during the last year with COVID. Oh, here's a biggie. Food is how I reward myself. Woohoo! Right? And sometimes we even reward our non-scale victories with food, which is kind of backwards. We're going to talk about that. Here's a biggie. Food is an area I can control. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, but I'm out of control with food. Again, I've learned the most from my patients through the years, and this is how they say it to me. Tell me if you can relate. There is so much out of control in my life right now. And man, we've learned that with the global pandemic. The one thing I can count on, the one thing I can control at the end of the night is just sitting down, putting my feet up, and eating my bowl of ice cream. And again, my patients say to me, doesn't that mean I'm out of control? And I'm like, no, because you get to control eating. No one can not make you eat that ice cream. Okay. So it becomes a way that you can take control. Like, at least I can do this to make myself feel better. At least I can count on this at the end of the night. Food is something I can control. And finally, is food an area of self-care for you? Again, everything to everyone. Go, go, go. Do. All of you have healthy self-care needs that you need to take care of. So has food become that, you know what? I'm too tired to do any healthy self-care, but there's that salty snack, or there's that sweet. That is how I'm going to take care of my emotional needs. So just real quick, kind of add up all your check marks, okay? And I used to love taking these quizzes when I was a teenager, right? And magazines were a thing. So if you have 1 to 4, you have a mild psychological relationship with food. And if you have 5 to 8, you have a moderate psychological relationship with food. And if you scored in that 9 to 12, you have a strong psychological relationship with food. Is anyone comfortable? And maybe you want to, if someone could monitor the chat for me, that would be really great. Where's our group fallen?
We are in the moderate to strong.
Yeah.
And I think I'm reading these as quickly as I can when they're coming in. I think what's so powerful about this, Lora, is, I guess I can only speak for myself, but when I first started this journey, it's like, food is just, I know I've got an issue sometimes with it, but blah. But when I see a list like this, and when I hear you describe what these actually look like in life, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I thought I was an 8. I'm actually probably a 9 or a 10. And it's so hard to admit that we use food for these reasons, but I can't feel shame about that. I can't feel bad about that. Like, my brain and my body did what it needed to do to get me through these difficult moments in life. And I just don't have another skill yet. I'm working on it, and I'm getting much better, but it's hard to admit it. But I feel like once you find your number, I guess, from this list, you can acknowledge it, and then you can game plan forward.
Absolutely. And April, I love that you said there's no shame in it, because I want to say to all of you, how do you know what you don't know? Like, no one's ever taught you the psychological piece to weight loss. You know a lot about nutrition, you know a lot about exercise. And so, of course, when I meet a new bariatric surgery patient, I'm like, so tell me about your relationship with food. Oh, I just eat when I'm hungry, or I don't know, I just eat out of habit. I could have put that one in the quiz. Habit eating is still emotional eating because our habits make us feel comfortable. So no one's ever really taught you to look at this angle to food. So it's not your fault that you didn't know. How do you know what you don't know?
Does anybody have any comments, anything that you'd like to reflect on? Aaron, I really appreciate your comment there in the chat. Yeah, Natalie, agreed.
And if there, April, if there's anything you see in the chat that you think I need to hear, could you just read it to me?
Yes.
Well,
So,
I think one of the most important things that you actually were talking about, Laura, was the fact that, you know, we control that eating at the end of the day, and a lot of times that's what gets us to the end of the day, is knowing that that's waiting on the other side for us. So we kind of use that as the fuel to push throughout the day. So it makes it that much more connected to us when we actually sit down and have whatever that food is that we decide is going to be, you know, is going to be that celebration for making it through that day. So that's kind of one of those deals where that's the slippery slope that can lead us back to continuing to do that over and over again, and making those choices that aren't so great for us, because we can start putting that as, you know, that's the fuel that got me through yesterday, so let's try it again today and see if it works. And then before you know it, you're doing it more and more days a week than you were, you know, previously, before you started getting yourself into that mindset.
mm-hmm. Yes, yes. So I think we are kind of transitioning into why is food so hard to give up, right? And how do you know what's going on here? And first of all, therapy 101. Okay, so if I go back to late 90s, I was in grad school training to be a therapist. Therapy 101, okay, is you never take a client's unhealthy coping skill away from them until they are ready to put in a new one. There is quite a process there in therapy, okay? There's first helping the client see they have unhealthy coping skills, right? And why they're unhealthy. Then it's some education about what are some other things you can do, more therapy sessions or group sessions. And then you baby step the practice with the new skill. Guess what? Bariatric surgery goes absolutely against that. Your relationship is severed, bam, in the operating room, right? That unhealthy coping skill, which you may not have realized was unhealthy, is taken away immediately. It is severed in a matter of seconds. Your relationship with food, bam. Okay. And so that's why it's so important. I mean, when we come in from the therapy standpoint, we understand the surgery needs to be done, but we also need to be giving you tools to develop those healthy coping skills. And so the quiz has probably shown you that for a very long time, you have been looking to food to meet some very healthy emotional needs. I'm going to get to that part, right? But these are healthy emotional needs to be able to celebrate, to have comfort, to have friendship. Okay. And I want you to put your age in. Okay. Put your age in. So, April, how old were you when you had weight loss surgery?
I was 38.
Okay. So, for 38 years, you and food had a relationship. And it's going to take a long time to change that. It's not going to happen overnight just because you had bariatric surgery. Okay. And I think what I want to tell all of you today is you're going to grieve it. You will grieve your emotional relationship with food. In fact, patients have told me through the years, wow, I didn't even know. Like, I didn't even know I had an emotional relationship with food until it was taken away from me. And it's completely normal to grieve. You are literally grieving a loss of a friend, a loss of comfort, a loss of a way that you were able to deal with conflict. And what I know as a therapist is you will go through the same grief and loss waves that you go through when you go through a breakup or even a death. Okay. So,
And Laura, I want to say this too. If I'm almost 2 years post-op and I'm still grieving food, not at the level that I was right after surgery, but oh my God, there are some days where I get so depressed, I get so bummed, I just get so like, and I have to, at least I know what it is now, but I have to recognize, oh my God, I'm 2 years out and I'm still grieving food. But I think back to, romantic relationships that I had with ex-boyfriends or men. There were horrible relationships and I still grieve those sometimes. So I have to think of my food relationship in the same way that I think of the other, breakups that I've gone through in my past life. It's the same. And that grief might not ever go away. I just have to get good with that.
That was exciting. Absolutely. And that might be something I come back and talk about some more, is the waves of grief and loss and how normal it is, because all of the patients tell me like, well, I should feel so excited. I should feel so happy. Like, why am I sad? Why am I angry? Why am I bargaining? Like, this doesn't make sense to me. I should be really, really happy, but it's normal. Right. And it's normal. And which brings me kind of to the next question that April wanted, that we were talking through some talking points here of, how can we identify our current relationship with food? How can we identify our current mindset when it comes to food? Well, one, you all took this little quiz. It wasn't scientific, by the way. It's just Lora Grabow, but it helped, get our kind of understand some of the emotional needs we were getting met through food. It's helped you see that this doesn't just go away in the operating room, right? Like, by having bariatric surgery, it doesn't take the emotional relationship with food away. Step two, identifying where you're at. And I think you hear this beautifully out of April, is give yourself grace and space. Okay? Give yourself grace and space. Changing your relationship with food is not going to happen overnight. Reframing how you think of food is not going to happen just because, hey, I went to this meetup today for 1 hour. It takes time. Think of other breakups you went through, if you will. It's a process. So give yourself grace and space. And finally, can you celebrate that you're already changing your relationship with food? You wouldn't be here if you weren't. So you have to celebrate. You have a desire to develop a new and healthy relationship with food. You are all here. You all came, which shows me and shows each other that you're ready to say, hey, I want to do it different. I want to have a different physical relationship with food and a different psychological relationship with food. And that is how you identify where you're at. April, I don't know if you want to add anything or if you just want me to keep going.
No, I just want to let you know this happens every single time, Laura, that we do this, but you have about 5, 6, maybe 7 minutes left before we need to transition to Jamie.
Perfect, because that's about what I have left. Or maybe not even. So we are a good team. So finally, I'm a big action step person, right? Like, I want you to leave with like, oh, not just that therapist just came and talked about therapy stuff. What do I do about it? Like, how can I make my Saturday different? What's my action step? And when I work with my patients, I always tell them every behavior is driven by a thought and an emotion. Okay. Every behavior is driven by a thought and an emotion. And if we want to change our behavior, we have to work on changing our thoughts and also listening to our emotions. What are they telling us? Let's pay attention to them. What do they need? And friends, this is the missing piece to your bariatric surgery treatment plan. This is the head work. You have to start working on your thoughts. You have to start working on your emotions, just as you're working on your nutrition and exercise. So here's the action step. I want you to go back to that quiz, and I want you to pick one role that you'd want to work on. Now, I know you all struggle with perfectionism and you're like, I'm going to work on all of these right now. That doesn't work. I want you to pick one. So for example, what if it's relaxation, right? Jason was talking about him looking for that food at the end of the night. Could be reward, could be relaxation. I'm going to say it's relaxation. You've had a long day. You want to put your feet up. Can I tell you that that's healthy? It's healthy that you want to unwind and relax. But I'm here to tell you today, your relaxation needs are worth so much more than a McDonald's French fry. I'm going to say that again. Your relaxation needs are worth so much more than a McDonald's French fry or insert bowl of ice cream, salty snack. So start even today to say, what's a healthy way I can relax? Can I read a book? Do I take a hot shower? My husband loves to fish and woodwork, not the way I would choose to relax. And that's the key point. Your relaxation needs are unique to you. Maybe you like to do some adult coloring. Find out what it is and work on replacing it one action step at a time. That's it. I hope it was helpful.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Laura, thank you. Well, first, thank you. I think based on what I'm seeing in the chat, everybody is probably like me, and you've kind of got this like thing in your brain that's things are popping and you're just going, oh my God. I would love for us to take just 30 seconds, you guys, and either write something down like what I've done here, or really think about what Laura asked us to do. What area from this list do you want to focus on, or do you want to commit to? What do you want to change? And then what are you going to do when that thing happens instead of turning right away to food? What are those things that you're going to do? If you feel comfortable sharing it in the chat, please do so. And if you feel comfortable just unmuting yourself and tell us what you want to do, that would be awesome.
Can I jump in? So I have never related more in my life than to you, Jason, when you were talking about the relaxation component at the end of the day. My binges always happen at the end of the night once I've put the kids to bed. And they just look different now. Post-op, it'll be 3 sugar-free popsicles instead of everything that's in my kitchen. So I'm still worried about that. But I have noticed that it's worse when I'm watching TV, because that's like the indicator to my body that I'm relaxing. Is television or movies going to always be like a food trigger for me? Is that something I need to eliminate for now and just find something different altogether? Or would you recommend like finding a different partner for television?
I would recommend absolutely finding a different partner for television, because here's the thing. We think our triggers are controlling us, but they're not, right? So we experience a trigger, then we have a thought, then we make a decision, and then we have an action, and that happens in a nanosecond, right? So you don't have control over the trigger. This is why I don't want you to take movies out unless it's too difficult, right? But eventually I'd like you to be able to get back to movies if it's too difficult, and then change what can I do about it, but only one small step at a time. And so if you're doing 3 sugar-free popsicles, let's wean you down to 2 or 1. Or I don't know if you have a dog, like you're a cat, like could you say, okay, I'm gonna pet. Or if you live with somebody, if you have a partner, and maybe I'm gonna, have you rub my feet or something like that. Or a lot of people crochet or knit while they're watching a show. That would probably cause me to emotionally eat, because I'm not good at that stuff. But you can retrain your brain to say, this is relaxation time. Many people relax with a good show, a good no-brainer show, and eventually the show might be enough. But if you feel like you have to do something with, I would practice with your words using a different partner.
Thank you.
Awesome. Just awesome. Are there any final questions or observations that you have for Laura? Anything that you'd like to ask or let her know? I love seeing what you guys are writing in the chat. Please don't take my silence for anything awkward. I just want to make sure that there is space and grace for us to say and do what we need to do as we transition.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Miss Lora, thank you so very much for your insight and your wisdom. If you are a patron of East to West, Lora and Jamie will actually be joining us at our after party event, this VBM after party. So you will have another opportunity to interact with them if something does pop into your brain. All right, let's transition to Jamie. Lora, thank you again. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Miss Jamie, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so sorry I was like 2 minutes late. I had a little issue with the Zoom link. I was like, oh no. So I popped in right after introductions, but hi everyone, I'm Jamie. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm the sleeved dietitian. So I had weight loss surgery in 2017. I had VSG. And I'm also a registered dietitian. And I think it surprised people that I went to school for nutrition and nutrition education, but still struggled with my weight my whole life. Like Lora says, it's more than just knowing what like healthy food is and eating healthy food. It's the mindset too. I struggled with PCOS my whole life. There was a lot going on there. But since then, and to clarify, I was already finishing up school to be a dietitian when I had my surgery. So I was in my last year of school before I got credentialed. And then once I got my license, I told people on Instagram. I had my Instagram page documenting my whole journey before that, just to meet people and find support. I didn't tell anyone what my background was as far as education. And I just fell in love with the weight loss surgery community on Instagram so much. I met so many of my best friends there and found so much support. And then when I told everyone that I'm a dietitian, a lot of people were like, oh, can you help me? Can you help me with this? Or I struggle with that. And I was like, yeah, I can. So, throughout my journey, one of the things that I realized and was really, really important to me was I knew that I needed to change my mindset and reshape the way I thought about food, because I could not go back to the all or nothing binge restrict cycles of diet mentality. That was a big piece of what led me to my surgery in general, and using food for coping. And one of the things that I started to realize was long term on my journey, restricting foods was just not going to work for me. Now, I'm a big advocate, like April said, I'm not here to replace any sort of nutrition or medical advice. You have to listen to your surgeon. And the post-op diet is there for a reason. The first year you're heavily restricted, protein is essential. So you really aren't having a wide variety of foods, and that's expected. That's why we take our vitamins, and, we're monitored by our team to make sure we're not deficient in things. But one of the things I see long-term in the bariatric community is, people will come to me at 2 or 3 years out, and they're still trying to eat the way that they did when they were 4 months post-op. They're still trying to keep portions to 2 to 4 ounces and protein only. And, they'll get up every day and have their protein shake and some little protein meals. And by midday, end of the day, it's a lot of the grazing or binging or going overboard with the snacks and back to that all or nothing mindset. So one of the things I like to do with my clients and in my tribe membership program is I like to teach people how to balance their plates and allow all foods to fit long term. And I do that by really teaching about in-depth nutrition education, which I think is something that is also lacking in bariatric care, alongside with the mindset work. But if we can understand food and we can understand how it processes in our body and how our body reacts to it and how hormones work and how blood sugars are stabilized, and it can really open your eyes to how we could make really great healthy meal plates. And I'm a huge foodie even now. I love food. I love to eat. And I saw in the comments, a lot of people feel like apathy towards food after surgery, and that's normal for a while, but I don't want anyone on this journey to feel like they can never enjoy food again. And while we don't want to cope with it when we're sad or emotional, we don't want to resent it either. Like at some point in this journey, you should be able to go out with friends and have lunch and enjoy a meal that you really want, and make sure that you're hitting your protein goal, but also having foods that are satisfying. And one of the biggest things that I see is people fearing food or not sure how to make their meal plates. So again, I'm a really big advocate for nutrition education. And I think everyone's deserving of that so that they can feel empowered in their choices. And I don't believe that you can feel empowered in making your food choices if you're told what to do without being told why. So has anyone felt like they were told to do something diet-wise, but weren't given a really good explanation of why? I'm happy to answer some questions too, if people are wondering the whys behind certain things.
And Jamie, sorry, I just have to say how powerful our conversation with you was in this regard, because, and as Stephanie was saying in the chat, nobody, for my surgeon, I didn't get anything that said, oh, and by the way, after about a year, your diet and what you can eat and how much and your frequency is going to change all over again. And it's going to feel more normal, even though it's never going to be like it was before. Nobody tells you that. So
right.
then all of a sudden you get terrified because, oh my God, I can eat more, or something's wrong with me, or I've gained a couple pounds, but that's normal. They just don't tell you that. And it's terrifying.
Right. And sometimes I find it almost disrespectful that they don't always tell you those things. It's almost like, don't tell them. If they don't know they can eat more, they're not going to try, and then they'll keep their weight off. And it's like, that's not a great approach. And I know that not every center has that approach either, but that's what I hear a lot of from people, like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to eat more. Like, people come to me and they say, oh my God, my tool's broken. I broke my sleeve. I stretched my sleeve. I'm past the point of no return. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you can eat more. That's great. Like, let's make sure that you're eating enough. And I like to focus long-term on the quality of your food versus the quantity. I think it's really easy to get hung up on how many ounces you're eating or how many calories, which is why long-term, I don't really suggest calorie counting unless it's something that you really truly enjoy. I think there are other ways that we can create balanced plates and portions so that we can keep you fuller longer, keep you satisfied, hit those protein goals. And the thing is, when we have really great, because I see people who are afraid to eat, they're like, oh, well, I'm only supposed to have this little ounce of protein or a little bit of protein and veggie. I'm like, okay, but if you're still hungry, then it's okay to eat more of that and add to your plate. I would so much rather see you have a really great, well-rounded plate that will keep you full, has protein and fiber and even a little carb, a little fat, keep the portions, adequate for you so that we're not snacking or grazing in between meals. Because when we're overly restricted, when we're still, whenever people come to me, they're like, oh my God, Jamie, I'm hungry again. Does anyone know why you become hungry again after not having hunger for so long or not having strong hunger signals? All right, I'll tell you. So in your stomach, there is a hormone called ghrelin, and ghrelin is the hunger hormone, and it signals to your brain, hey, I'm hungry, you should feed me. And after surgery, that hormone goes away for a while, which really is a beautiful thing because it gives us space to learn our new tool. But when time goes on, our bodies are really, really great at protecting us and adapting. And long-term, it would not be great to never feel hunger because we don't want to become underweight or malnourished. So your body's there to protect you, which I think is a beautiful, amazing thing. And ghrelin starts to produce again and says to your brain, hey, I'm hungry. So when people start to feel that again, they're like, oh no, like I'm hungry. And I'm like, okay, that's great. We should eat. The worst thing that I think we could do is when our body tells us something like, oh, you're hungry, is to ignore it. Your body needs food for a reason. And if we can honor that and we can eat something intentionally and mindfully and appropriate, what then happens, and especially when we have a full meal plate, is there's another hormone called leptin. It's secreted from your fat cells. And when you eat a sufficient meal, leptin kicks in and tells your brain, okay, you can tell ghrelin to chill now. We don't need any more of it. And then you're not hungry. But if we don't eat enough to kick in that leptin, we'll be left unsatisfied and still hungry after our meal. And then obsessive thoughts come about, and then we're grazing or binging, and then we feel bad. So then we're emotionally eating on top of it. And that's where we kind of spiral, I think. Not for everyone, but that's what I see very often. So when people say, oh my God, I'm hungry again, what should I do? I'm like, you should definitely eat something. It seems simple, and I know it's so much harder than that. But if we can stop, I always tell people, eating should be the least stressful part of your day. You have enough stress in your life and enough things to do that eating and meal prepping and planning meals should not be as hard as we make it sometimes, which is why I try so hard to deliver that education and insight. So I always call it like that spinning hamster wheel of, oh my God, like obsessively thinking about the next meal or the next snack, or what am I going to do if this happens? Or, oh, I ate an extra bite. Like, I'm the worst human ever. I ruined it. My day's done. Like that never ending hamster wheel of thoughts. If we can just get that to stop. And one of the things I ask my clients is, if you weren't on that spinning hamster wheel of obsessing over your food thoughts or what you're going to eat, what could you do with that time? And what could you accomplish in that time? And where could your potential go? Because if we're all consumed with emotional eating thoughts or just thoughts about food in general, we're not living our best lives. And I think we all had this surgery to live our best lives.
I think you're saying, so I'm obviously watching the chat. Yeah, everybody is resonating with exactly what you're saying. And it's so frustrating, at least for me. You know, I could never trust my hunger signals because I was always hungry before surgery. So, you know, I never knew how to listen to my body. And then all of a sudden we have the surgery and something so drastic happens instantaneously. Not only do I not understand what food is and how it works in my body, but now I have this different sensation that is true hunger that I never really knew before. And I don't know what to trust and I don't know what to do. I mean, you just become so overwhelmed with everything that's happened that the only thing that you want to do is revert back to that time and place in your life where you did know, where things made a little bit of sense. And that was how I ate before surgery. And yet I just went through this so that I don't do that. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah. And it's exhausting. And then you feel that burnout. And I'm also, while I don't ever think that we should be using food for coping, and I'm so glad that Lora talked about all of that, I also don't believe, and you might be surprised to hear this from a dietitian, I guess, but I don't believe that food is just fuel. I think that media and social media and diet culture tells us food is fuel and you're weak if you think otherwise, and you should just eat to fuel yourself, only put really great things in your body at all times. And I just don't think that that's true. Food really is so much more. Like, it's part of our culture. It's part of how we celebrate holidays. It's part of, you know, how, for some families, how they express love with each other. And I think to expect all that to go away sets us up for unrealistic expectations. So, and I tell my clients, it's okay if you crave food. It's okay to have a craving. You're not a bad person because you want a cookie. Am I advocating for eating cookies right out of surgery? No, but long-term, I'd rather you understand how carbohydrates work in your body and feel empowered if you choose something. Because if we are constantly eating food out of guilt and shame, I think that puts us back on that hamster wheel versus saying, I'm going to have a snack because I really want it. And I'm going to make this conscious, intentional decision and own it and move on with my day. Because when we are able to do that and overcome it, we're way less likely to fall down that rabbit hole. And I say this, and it probably sounds simple, and it's not. Like, I realize firsthand how incredibly challenging this is, and this is an ongoing thing that we have to work on. And it doesn't just change overnight, but this is where when my clients come to me and they feel bad about what they ate, they're like, oh my God, I had ice cream this weekend, and they feel so much shame. My only question to them is, oh my God, what flavor, and was it delicious? Because I would rather you feel like you're not this terrible person, because it's not about willpower. I think if you go into the surgery expecting to never have anything fun, like to eat for the rest of your life, I think that's an unrealistic expectation.
So Jamie, I do have a question, and I think I've figured this out for me, but others might not. Does there need to be a balance between I am eating this item because it's cultural or it's family or it's celebration? Where is that fine line between doing that in a healthy way and doing that in a not healthy way? Does that make sense?
Yep. And I think this is where we need to start to identify our triggers, because we all have trigger foods that eating in moderation may not be an option. I shared recently on my stories with Easter the last couple of weeks, Cadbury mini eggs are not allowed in my house. Not because I could eat them moderately, but I don't. And I know I gravitate towards coping with them. So if I'm going to have a Cadbury mini egg, doesn't mean I'm never going to have them again. It means I'm going to get the single portion size when I'm not in my house. Because if that whole bag is in my house, I'm setting myself up for a binge. So I think it's knowing your boundaries and learning which foods you can and can't handle in that way. but this is where I teach what I call my bariatric meal plate method. So I can go on about this for like 5 hours and we don't have that kind of time, but essentially I like to recommend half a plate of, once you're at a plate where you're eating full meals again, half a plate of protein, quarter plate of veggies, and the last quarter divide between carb and fat. So as I like to have that approach. So, okay, I have my protein on my plate. I have some veggies. You know what? I have a little room for some carb. I'm going to choose one that I really, really want and enjoy. And that is just such a different mindset about having these things, you know, moderately and worked into your routine versus saying, you know what, I'm not allowed to have any sort of carb. It's not going on my plate. And then before you know it, you know, it's midday and you're snacking on your kids' Teddy Grahams, just bite here or there all day long before you realize the bag's gone and you should have just portioned out a little portion of something you really wanted at that time. One of the things I like to recommend to all my clients is even if we're struggling with what to eat and how to make sure that we're having balanced place, and we really are struggling with those trigger foods, if we know we're going to have them anyways, if we're not at a point yet where we're able to really work on this, one of the things I recommend, I'm like, I don't even care what's on your plate, but my one rule is you have to eat it on a plate. I don't care what it is, but if we are standing in the kitchen, because I know we all do this, I do this too sometimes, like, oh, a couple, even healthy, like bariatric friendly foods, a couple Lily's sugar-free dark chocolate chips here and there and here and there and here and there, that you're not your brain is not registering that you ate it, and you're not going to feel satisfaction if you're not acknowledging what you're eating. And I think so many of us avoid what we're doing to turn a blind eye because then we don't have to recognize it, and it's almost like it doesn't count. But your body counts everything you put in your body. So I would so much rather you say, you know what, I want something sweet. I want those Lily's dark chocolate chips. I'm going to put that on a plate. If I'm really feeling, you know, confident, I might even pair it with something like a yogurt to keep me fuller. And I'm going to sit there with my plate and my portion and have it versus pretending I'm not doing it and just what I call picking or grazing. Because I always say there's definitely a difference between having a snack or an intentional meal versus pretending you're not doing it and just still eating it all day long.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, one of the biggest things too, like that April and I have really kind of focused on and talked about is the fact of the automatic failure syndrome that you get whenever you mess up one time, you do one thing, you eat that food that you have that cookie or whatever, we go back to our old way of thinking, like you fail on a diet or like you fail with some new plan you were trying. And now I've eaten a cookie, now I've failed at this, and I get one chance in a lifetime to be able to make this tool work for me. And now I failed. And now you start really spiraling down this, the shame cycle and start getting everything keyed back up again. And the thought process behind it is like we've said before, nobody wins the year in January. You don't win your day at breakfast. If you mess up, you've got other meals coming down the road. Like you can correct the course. It doesn't have to be, oh, well, since I slipped at breakfast, let's go ahead and just have a lunch, and then we'll go ahead and just, we'll kill it at dinner because, why not? We're already off the rails. So you get to that point where if you don't think in such totality of, well, now that I've done this, everything's just wrecked, so it doesn't matter. You just kind of veer back onto the path and you're good.
I'd love to challenge those thoughts a little bit, Jason. So first off, one of the analogies I love is, okay, we have a flat tire. You don't stop on the road and slash the other three because, well, already ruined one tire, like forget them all. You say, okay, let me fix this tire and keep moving. And that's the same with eating. Just because we had one thing that is, and here's the other thing that I wanted to challenge is, if all foods eventually on this journey can fit and we take away the good and bad and just understand that they're different. And, what I tell my people is you have 3 to 6 opportunities every single day to eat, whether depending on your regimen and your meals and snacks. If you have the opportunity to choose something different each time, it's not this all or nothing, you can never have it. So every time you go to choose a meal, choose it with intent. And if we don't keep foods off limits, because you have an abundance of food at your disposal, you technically you can eat whatever you want. I mean, your surgeon doesn't follow you home and your dietitian's not holding your hand when you leave leave the center. It's up to you what you choose. So, you know, so if you're presented with the opportunity to eat and you ask yourself, what do I really want right now? Some days, if you know that you're not putting hard limits on yourself and you can't have food, because when you tell yourself you can't have something and it's bad, then it immediately perpetuates the shame and guilt if we have it. But when we tell ourselves we can have whatever it is that we'd like, and some days, if you really give yourself that space and grace, as April says, like, so most of the time you're going to realize, you know, I want something to fill me up that actually meets my goals and makes me feel good physically and mentally. Some days it might be, you know what, I really do want that snack. But if you let yourself have it without the shame and guilt and move on to the knowing that the next meal you'll have the same opportunity, it's not this forbidden, sacred thing. It's like we make it this heightened experience that, oh, I can never have, I always use the cookies for an example because cookies are my favorite food. Like they're so I treat myself to one here or there, but I think also restricting foods for certain times is where this comes in too. If you say, oh, well, it's not a weekend, I have to wait till the weekend to have my cookie, or I have to wait till a holiday to have this. I mean, is it the end of the world if you let yourself have something you really want on a Tuesday afternoon because that's what you're craving, and have it and move on? Because then when you're presented with the next opportunity, you might not actually want it. And I think this is the piece where a lot of people have never learned to trust themselves and their bodies and give themselves that grace and respect.
I can't tell you, and this is the one thing that I will take 1000% credit for. Space and grace popped into my brain when I was struggling with this straight out of surgery. And the reason that that phrase for me is so powerful is because it gives me the power to make the choice that is truly best for me in that day. If I'm confronted with a food choice, I can say, okay, do I need space from this food, or do I need the grace to enjoy it and move on? And what a powerful place that I was never in before surgery. That is the power of surgery for me. It gives me the choice. And before surgery, I didn't have it.
And if you give yourself the respect and the grace to choose something, what a lot of people that I've worked with have found is they don't actually want the cookie or the chocolate or the French fries when they actually ask themselves. What usually happens is it comes out of a place of compulsion where you're eating it so quickly or out of shame or to get it out of the way, or I'm going to do this and then I'm not going to own it and I'm going to just, like, if you can ask yourself, like, do you actually want the French fry, or are you eating it because it's there? And if you know you can have the French fry whenever you choose the next time, who cares if you eat it today or not? There's a million places to stop and get French fries every day of the week. Do you have to eat it right now? And I think when you can actually ask yourselves those questions, sometimes you'll be like, no, I actually don't want that. That's not what's going to fuel me. I might have it later if I want, but I don't need it. And I think so many of us, it's like, oh, well, there's French fries here now, and if I'm going to have it, I got to have it now, and I got to eat all of it now because then I'm going back on my diet tomorrow. And it's just not so black and white.
No.
And I would love to just jump in real quickly because this is all so good. And I put it in the chat. Your food choices are not your character. And one of the things that I work on in the beginning with my clients is giving them a new language about eating. And I'll hear things like, oh, I cheated, or I was bad, or I was naughty. These are shame words, okay? And they're going to start a shame spiral, and it's not going to be happy. When you make a food choice, it has nothing to do with your character. You're either choosing to eat on plan or you're choosing to eat off plan. That's
one of the things
and
that
you make that choice.
The good and bad terms is what I work with my clients most on eliminating from their vocabulary. Because I'm like, it's not good or bad, it's different. They're just, a protein food is different than a carb food, which is different than a fibrous veggie, which is different from, olive oil or nuts. Like, they're all different. And when we can understand their differences and what they do for our body and how they can either support us in our goals or possibly work against us, you get to choose which of those you actually want to have in your body and eat and enjoy. But when you say, oh, well, this cookie is bad and I'm terrible, like, it's not bad, it's just different than an apple. It's just their makeup is just different.
I have a feeling, you guys, we could continue this conversation for hours. And I am sorry to be the person that has to tell us that we are 5 minutes away from the end of our very special time together. There were some great questions in the chat, and I want to make sure that we get addressed. Casey, would you like to unmute yourself and ask, or do you want me to just ask your question?
I'm fine unmuting. My question was, Jamie, do you recommend that people use your bariatric plate method for meals or also for snacks? Like, should you be balancing your snacks the same way?
I absolutely recommend balancing snacks as well. I don't necessarily think that your meal plate needs to look exactly like, your snacks don't have to look like a full meal plate every time, but I definitely recommend balancing nutrients, which I actually, in my membership program, I have 14 modules on my meal plate method, but I also have a whole module dedicated just to how to strategically pair snacks. Because we want to stay fuller longer. We want to stabilize our blood sugars. We don't want to have those dips in blood sugar in between, which again, hormones I can go into all day long too. But I definitely recommend having more than one thing. So it also maximizes your restriction. So let's say you really do want to have like a snacky food, like popcorn. Okay, cool. We're gonna have a cup of popcorn, but then 10 minutes later, you're probably gonna be hungry. Let's pair that with a string cheese. So you have some protein to fill up your belly, get your needs met, stay fuller longer. And this is where I always encourage my members and my clients to I like to help them create goals from a place of abundance versus restriction. I would always rather you add something than take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. Natalie, you had a question. You want to ask it?
Yeah. So I find myself struggling with like mentally preparing myself for unplanned or planned like eating events, as we like to call them on the podcast. Like if I know I'm going out to dinner or I'm having dinner at a friend's house, like mentally preparing for that in a way that's like still being kind to myself, but allowing myself the space and grace. Like how do you help to kind of prepare your mind for this, it's still a planned event, but how do you kind of go about mentally preparing yourself for that?
So there's a couple pieces here. So you can absolutely strategically plan as best as possible and say, okay, I'm going to maybe look at this restaurant's website and look at the menu and see how I can, make it a bariatric plate, but also something I really want. That can ease some of the anxiety of just going somewhere unknown. But honestly, I start all of my programs with mindset work before I ever let my clients even touch their plate. And I'm not a therapist by any means, and I don't do any sort of therapy, but I'm a really, really big advocate for journaling and working on affirmations and manifesting things. So writing out and saying affirmations, there's actually a scientific component to this. It helps rewire the neurotransmitters in your brain to think differently. So you might want to even try practicing it. It might sound strange at first. You're like, I don't want to do affirmations. Everyone tells me they don't want to do it. But I know myself and know my body, and I choose foods confidently wherever I go. Something like that, if you can write it and say it to yourself every single day, it might take some time, but with practice, your brain will catch up and start to believe that. And when you tell yourself, I confidently choose foods wherever I go, you know what's best for you when you go to that restaurant or you go to that party. As far as going to like picnics or parties, especially with the summer, another rule I like to give people is, okay, great, have what you'd like at this picnic or this party, but grab one of the paper plates at the table before you grab for the chips. Whatever you have, still try your best if you're able to put it on a plate. I think that's very helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm so sorry, you guys. We, as always, we could spend the entire day together learning and growing from one another. But our time is up, unfortunately. If you wouldn't mind, take 30 seconds and give yourself some space to really reflect on what you're leaving today with. What is standing out? What was an aha moment for you? What is going to make a difference in your life today, or this week, or this month, or for the rest of your life? Are you getting out of today what you were hoping to get out of today? And if you feel comfortable, share it in the chat, or just unmute yourself and let us know.
I have two things. My Lora thing is that I will come up with some relaxations, my number one thing that I eat for. Come up with some alternatives for that maybe can be, tied to my TV watching with my husband. And then the other thing is like zapping the shame around food decisions, right? Like I don't feel shame for my need to urinate. Why do I feel shame for my like desire for certain foods? Like these are just human things. So
April, I'm going to take away, this is Angie. I'm going to take away from Jamie. I didn't think about writing down the affirmations. I've heard it before. I'm not going to lie. I always thought it was kind of cheesy, but I'm excited to try it. And I'm going to work on that. And I'm going to do it every day, several times a day. And then from Lora, I really identified with the boredom eating part of the quiz. So I know I've put that in chats before and stuff. So that's the thing that I try working on. I'm 9 months post-op and I'm still losing at a pretty good rate. So I think I kind of have a little bit of that mentality. Well, I'm not, I'm still losing, must be doing good, and I track everything. So I know that I'm within my macros, but I still know sometimes I'm going to the pantry when I don't really need to be. So those are the things I'm going to work on. And thank you to both of you girls.
I'm seeing some great stuff in the chat. I too am leaving with pages of quotes and things to think on. And yeah, and I have to say, you guys, some days, planning these and finding people in our community who will volunteer their time, as Lora and Jamie have done today, it can be a lot of work. And some days, if I'm going to be totally transparent, it's exhausting. And then we come together in days like this and my tank gets refilled. I am recharged. So, I mean, this is just, beneficial on so many levels. Both Lora and Jamie have some resources that they would love to recommend for us. Lora, will you take just a few moments and tell us what those are? And then Jamie, will you also take a few moments and talk about your resource?
Yes, I am super excited. You are the first community to hear that I'm going to be offering a free masterclass next month. People are struggling coming out of COVID. 61% of Americans have gained weight, an average of 2 pounds a month. So I'm going to do a COVID comeback masterclass. Why did we gain weight during COVID? And 3 small habits to lose it. It is free. It is Saturday, May 8th, 10 a.m. There's the link right there. You can just go and register and sign up today. And then also wanted to let you know that I also, because I was so passionate about getting head work tools, I've developed to bariatric surgery patients, I've developed an online course called Foundations in Head Work for Healthy Weight Loss that you can check out as well in that link.
Awesome. Thank you, Lora. And just so you guys know, you will be getting an emailed version of this PowerPoint with the link. So don't fret that these links will never be there again. And you guys can, of course, follow Lora and Jamie on Instagram. You can reach out to them directly. But if you want whatever you need, get in touch with us and we will pass that along. Jamie, tell us about the tribe membership.
Real quick. All right. So it stands for the Real Insights of Bariatric Eating, and it is my membership program. I have either monthly subscription options, or you can opt in at 3 or 6 months to save a little bit of money. But essentially what it is I just envisioned, where can you go after surgery to get everything that you need in one spot? Because, we go to Instagram for support and for resources, but I really want people to have legitimate advice and guidance by people who have had surgery and have credentials. So when you join the tribe, you have all of my, every resource and module I've ever created, as far as my videos, my guides, my handouts, and topics. You get access to all of that. We have 3 personal trainers in the tribe who are all NASM certified, and they all had weight loss surgery, so they give you workout videos every single month. We have a psychologist on our team who also had weight loss surgery, and she leads our emotional eating support groups. We have, and speaking of, so every single month we put out new meal ideas, new recipes, new modules, new topics. I do guest expert calls every single month. I do live Q&As to answer all your questions as you work through the material. And we have 8 different live support groups every single month, all led by bariatric patients. Who have the credentials and the ability to do so. So we have emotional eating support groups. We have regain support groups. We have support groups if you're pre-op or newly post-op. There really is something in there for everyone, because as much as I wish my meal plate method was the only thing that would save us on this journey, that's just not true. We need to work on our emotions. We need to work on having support, consistency, building a good routine. So that's essentially what it is, but you can go learn more. You can reach out. I also just this week did my very first ever free bariatric webinar where I talk about my meal plate method in depth. So you can use that link. You can watch the replay. I will just say, if you watch the replay, when I logged on to record my Zoom that day, I logged on early to make sure there weren't tech issues. So the first few minutes is a blank screen. So I'm so sorry. I promise it works. With the free webinar, I'll share here too, if it's okay, April, I also am doing the biggest discount I've ever done for the tribe. So if you go through the webinar, you will get a code at the end. I will share it here too. It's goals 50, and it's $50 off your 6-month membership. It's normally $354 for the whole 6 months, but it's $50 off, which comes right about to $50 per month to be a tribe member. So this code is only good until Monday, but if you think that this is something you might be interested in, please feel free to reach out to me. And at the very least, please go get your replay of my meal plate method, because I obviously couldn't go super in depth today, and I would love for you to have that information.
We are thrilled for all of these resources that you are pouring into this community, because as we all know, it's not just enough to have the surgery. We need these communities, we need these resources, we need this time. So thank you both for doing everything that you are doing to support us. It's amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, you guys, thank you for your time. If you would like to support East to West, there's 3 big ways that you can do so. You can share, you can participate, and you can become a patron. It's as simple as that. Every time you tag us, every time you share what we do, every time that you share the resources that Lora and Jamie have made, you are supporting East to West, you're supporting these women, and you are supporting this community. Join us at these lives. That's another way to help us. And then if you are a patron, that is another excellent way to support what we're doing at East to West. Very last thing, you guys, before we go, I want to make sure that you are leaving with what you were hoping with to do so today. So in the chat, will you just let us know if you are getting what you were hoping to get out of today? There is also a survey link here, you guys, and I was going to be super fancy and make sure that I included it in the chat, but I'm going to do it right now. Copy link. If you would not mind, take a minute, give us your very quick feedback, because we know that as the months are changing, that this support might need to change and shift with it. So if you guys wouldn't mind giving us that feedback, that'd be awesome. And in May, you guys, this group is the first one to know our support focus in May is shifting to vices, and it is going to be a heavy and equally epic month. So we just want to give you guys a little sneak peek into what we are focusing on in the months ahead. I'm glad that you guys got so much out of it. Oops, sorry, did I interrupt somebody? We cannot thank you guys enough for joining us. We know that it's hard to click a Zoom link. We know that it's hard to be open and vulnerable, but we very much appreciate that you guys are willing to be the best part of this community, which is active and there to help everybody else. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining us. If you are a patron of East to West, check your Patreon feed, check our Instagram, send us a direct message if you are missing that separate Zoom link. It is a totally separate Zoom link, but it's in all of the places. So that is where you can join us. And if you want to become a patron right now, you can do so, and I will send you the link before we start. So don't think that you miss out on today's opportunity because you're not a patron at this very moment. You can do so for $5 a month, and then you get that Zoom link. So all right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had a wonderful day. If you enjoyed it, share it with your own community, with your people. The YouTube link will be up on Monday. Just thank you guys. You're amazing. I'll stick on here for 5 minutes if you have any last minute questions or you want to say anything. But other than that, have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you soon. Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Jamie, I got your message. All right, I'm gonna hop over to the Patreon, guys.